The show that goes there. This is the Shaggy Jenkins Show on the Pacifica Radio Network.
It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show on the Pacifica Radio Network. Welcome to it. Boy, do we have a lot of stuff to cover for you today, including lunches, both good and bad, dollar menu and not. We've also got about a lot of people going to work disgruntled, and not a lot of lettuce is safe. We'll talk about that, Roku, Putin, and more in the show that reviews everything from the week that was. Before we get into all of that, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm, of course, your host, critical thinker, problem solver, guy just left of normal insane. My name, Shaggy Jenkins. You can find me at my website, shaggyjenkins.com, or wherever fine social media is served. Just look for me at Shaggy Live. Joining me from the lovely place called Chicago, he is the Windy City's very own native son information headquarters himself. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chris Bass.
You have overcome, for I am here. What's up, my brother? How you doing?
So far, so good, but boy, do we have a lot to talk about. Okay, before we get into the failed lunch that Donald Trump was going to have with Democrats, I got to ask you about this whole debacle for the Clemson team. Now, as everybody knows, Clemson, after an amazing season, won the championship, and as such were entitled for one of those great things that all athletes, going back to Forrest Gump, they get to meet the president. Pretty sure that's where it started. History kind of eludes me sometimes, Chris. But so they go to the White House only to be treated by an option of having the first ladies make a salad or a fast food buffet. Now, Donald Trump was really proud of his food selection. Chris, I gotta ask you, how did you take this whole the Arby's, McDonald's, Domino cold leftover buffet in the White House thing?
Again, it's an insult, and the man that's doing it, Agent Orange, Individual Zero, has no class whatsoever. You mentioned about football. Traditionally, for example, the Rose Bowl that happens every year, the selected teams that go every year are treated to Lowry's Prime Rib there in L.A. And Lowry's Prime Rib is some of the best. We have a branch here in Chicago, some of the best you ever want to have. And every year, the players and football staff are treated to some great prime rib, what they call a beef bowl. A beef bowl is almost half the size of a football as all prime rib. All the football players, everybody enjoys it. So imagine this time-honored tradition. You're going to, the Rose Bowl, you go to Lowry's Prime Rib in Los Angeles, and they serve you Cheetos.
Okay, because I'm sitting here going, all of a sudden I have the need with broken spine and everything that I got going on to go into college football again. That sounds like an amazing perk, but this is the thing. Donald Trump not only invited all these Clemson players this week, he invited all of the Democrats except Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. And here's question number one. Are you thinking that they were really afraid more of the menu or the conversation?
I would probably say a little bit of both, and I always say a little bit of both is because we're dealing in dire straits right now. America is hemorrhaging. As you know, obviously people out of work, trying to make ends meet, trying to pay mortgages and bills. But unfortunately, you have a president who's just completely out of touch, doesn't want to be in touch with the American people, and that's why people in the crossfires are suffering. So when this is happening, the lunch, we see how cheap it was. The bill was like $5,500, which is tip money. You could have went to your pocket. Hell, he has a hotel in the area, and those other caterers, it could have been catered. It could have been catered some fine food there at the White House. But no, he also politicized it as a political football in this situation because he said the reason why this is happening is because of the shutdown.
Oh, okay. As Kennedy the drag queen would say so eloquently right now. Okay, because this is the thing that kind of gets you about a little statement like that. How do you politicize hamburgers?
Well, it'll be nice to know how to spell it. You go back and Twitter and correct all you want to, but yeah, it's like I believe it was Burger King that outed the president and showed that he spelled it incorrectly. Again, a man who's out of touch. The man who believes that we revolve around him.
I got to bring this up because this is the funniest tweet of the week. Due to a large order, this is what Burger King put on their Twitter account. Due to a large order, we are out of hamburgers. Instead, we'll be serving hamburgers. I gotta say that is clever, and I am actually kind of happy the president didn't go with Wendy's, knowing how their social media campaign works.
Well, we all know about that, and again, I just feel so sorry for Clemson University. You go all this way to win the championship, and you come to this place, to the White House, to have a great memory served down the road when telling your grandchildren and your children about the time you went to this White House and you got Big Macs. So it's just a damn shame. But at the same time, people like Good Morning America's Michael Strahan has offered for the team to come to New York and have lobster, anything they want, on his bill.
That's all it would take for Donald Trump. Doesn't he have a lot of money in his bill? Didn't he give himself a massive tax break last year? I mean, surely there could have been something other than hamburgers and leftover Arby's, because, as we know, no sane human being would eat Arby's. But I'm just going to bring this up, okay? Because this is the thing. Democrats were invited to a lunch with Donald Trump because Donald Trump thought that if he could get enough hamburgers in him, or them, that they would feel kind of okay with giving him the $5 billion for his wall. But out of everybody that was invited, which was basically anybody that was a Democrat, except for Pelosi and Schumer, how many actually showed up at this dinner, Chris?
You know what? I here's the thing about people showing up and the rank and file Democrats to do this. I would probably say no and none. And even if anybody showed up, here's the deal behind the scenes as far as I'm concerned. All they want is to make sure the American people are taken care of. You cannot ignore the 900-pound gorilla in the room with the shutdown. We're entering day 26, 27 at this point of people not getting paid. Also adding insult to injury, they're receiving checks with zeros on it. So how much more can you put salt on the wounds to send a check to people with zeros on it? So again, this disconnect that the present administration currently has with the American people.
Well, this is what I don't understand, because out of Maui this week, the story of the Market Fresh Streetery food truck feeding all the TSA employees at our airport, Kahului International Airport, that story kind of goes further towards goodwill towards the federal employees than Donald Trump's lunch with Democrats. And this is the problem that I really have with this scenario. This scenario, Chris, bothers me because in a world where private citizens with their food trucks have to feed federal employees, and the president complains about nobody showing up to his lunches when he invites Democrats, is the president feeding the wrong people?
Of course. Look, anytime again, when your go-to sources are Ann Coulter and Rush Limbaugh, yes, we're doomed. Ann Coulter said recently that if the president does not get the wall, and he's dead to the party. And again, when you use fiery language like that, and he'll listen to it, because why should he change up now? His go-to people for advice are Sean Hannity, Ann Coulter, and Rush Limbaugh. So whatever they say, he'll do. So I'm sure he's heard the remarks from Ann Coulter. I'm sure he'll act upon that, because why should he change up now?
Exactly. And the thing is that when we talk about his unchanging ways, it came to light this week that the government shutdown over $5 billion that he wants for his wall will actually cost us in upwards of the entire cost for the construction of the wall, because of all the services, all of the back pay, and let's not forget all the financial fallout, all of the stuff that's going to have to go through the judicial system, and Last but not least, we're going to have a lot of trade unions and employees, some of them, border agents and TSA, already suing the government. That is also going to add to the final cost. So right now, Donald Trump, who is trying to feed Big Macs and hamburgers to Democratic people, doesn't even realize that asking for $5 billion is going to cost the country close to $50 billion at this point. And when we talk about those kind of numbers, Chris, will Donald Trump have any luck in nailing this to the Democrats because they didn't show up and talk things over?
He would have no luck at all. He is a man on an island unto himself. And so, me sometimes, I'll go check out other forms of media just to see what's out there sometimes. So I was watching Newsmax TV, which is a conservative channel, kind of like Fox News Light, or trying to compete with Fox News if you think about it. So they have conservative talk show hosts on there. I think that's where Bill O'Reilly ends up at this point right now from his days at Fox. He's over there at Newsmax TV. So there's this guy named Todd Schnitt, who's a talk show host. He was doing the show. And so even this lady calls up during the show, says the following, I'm paraphrasing, even though I support the president, what he should do is take care of the shutdown and then the border. So you have people out there who are for the president, but look, go in this order. We need our money. Take care of us first and then take care of the border.
Well, see, that's just it, because instead of taking care of them, because let's not forget, certain essential services have been kept open. That essential service, the one that I encountered the most of, which, by the way, congratulations to all the TSA officials and agents across the country that have been playing things like Childish Gambino, Beastie Boys, Sicko Mode, you name it. They have even had some Vince Staples played at certain checkpoints. So for every TSA agent that is really just fighting the power with their soundtracks at all these airports, I got to say it made traveling very, very interesting, especially in New York, where in JFK, No Sleep Till Brooklyn was playing at the baggage claim. But with all of the fun and games that we're talking, there is kind of a serious side of this. Trump found out that some of these essential services had to do with the FDA, the people that actually were, last year finding out that romaine lettuce was trying to kill us. Well, food inspections and, of course, traveling and dock inspections and stuff haven't been going on because those agencies were not properly funded. The problem is now, Chris, is he's recalled some 50,000 additional workers in those areas, and still the government shut down. So now 50,000 more people are being added to the Donald Trump slave workforce.
Again, a president who is using people to further his cause for this wall, and it's not fair to them. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, no matter if you're Democrat or Republican, conservative, liberal, it doesn't matter. Ideology aside, it's about taking care of the American people. He doesn't want to do that. His ulterior motive is to get this wall, and is etched into his brain. But he also forgets very easily. This is the same person who said that Mexico would pay for the wall, not the American taxpayer. It's always Mexico. So I'm funny about that, because when did we turn and became Mexico? When did that happen? Because now all of a sudden the taxpayer in America has to pay for this wall of his.
Well, the funny thing is all these 50,000 people that he has called back into work, how many of them are of Mexican descent? The fact of the matter is that, Chris, we have like a major problem in this country when Donald Trump, instead of addressing the needs of some 400,000 furloughed, well, not even furloughed, not being paid for their actual jobs that they went through and got, they're not getting their paychecks in a country where some 400,000 were already not receiving pay. Donald Trump added 50,000 more to them. And then, this is the funny part, Chris, now he's trying to stick it on Donald Trump. Are people believing that this is the Democrats' fault?
He said that from, again, let's go back in the timeline. So remember a few weeks back when he was in the White House, it was him and Speaker Pelosi and Senator Majority Leader Schumer. And all three of them, including, well, I don't count Mike Pence, who was being quiet as a church mouse during that time. So when Trump said, "I'll own the shutdown," now he's on record of saying that. So after that, he spins it around and says the Democrats' fault. So it not only is it lying, you're on tape, you're documenting, and you're still lying. So yeah, you can put on the Democrats because that's the mantra of the Republicans. Blame the other side. Blame them. Even though your leader is documented saying that he'll own it, now you want to do a 180 and say it's Democrats' fault.
The thing is that this is very eerily similar to the operating modus operandi, I should say, of one Vladimir Putin. And this week, the story has also come out that Donald Trump's policies and Donald Trump's shutting down the government, Donald Trump's bucking with military leaders over our Syrian policy, all has to do with kind of the dictates of Russian propaganda. And this story that came out in the New York Times, and let's just be honest, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and other publications have really been beating up the president over this.
Yes,
What the thing that everybody is asking is, what has been happening with our leader and Russia's dear leader, Vladimir Putin? Chris, I want to ask a very interesting theory. With all of the way that Donald Trump is behaving now, is he, much like former intelligence agents have been saying in all the news panel shows this week, is Donald Trump behaving more and more like a Russian asset every single day, including his actions around the shutdown?
Oh, absolutely. And again, my timeline in this is when he was in Helsinki, across from Putin, and when he, meaning the president, did not even embrace his own intel and sided with Putin. That should have been the Soviet Union flag going up right then and there. That should have been the key sign. But no, you did have people. Now, to Fox News' credit, they did go after the president and challenged him on that issue. I was shocked and surprised. I was even shocked and awed that they did. But they did challenge the president on that because it's like I always said about, you can't spin this. Some things you can't spin. That was one of them. But that should have been the eye-opener right there.
The thing that was really kind of eye-opening for me was Jeanine Pirro's appearance in this whole story. Yeah, everybody knows her as the soulless Fox News commentator that possibly eats children to sustain her life force. I would say that I would know her as the woman that kind of asked the president one of the, what I would like to call, most discussed non-answers of the week. Now, later, the president did, of course, go on record and say, no, I am not talking to Russia for policy. But when he was on Judge Pirro's show, he did not, in fact, give an answer when she said, Mr. President, are you working with the Russians? Instead, he gave the kind of Russian propaganda whataboutism technique of, it's the most insulting thing I've ever heard. Chris, even she, one of the most staunchest, is still on the president's call list, supporters, kind of threw a look to the camera that was like, nah, you can't be serious. That's not your answer. So, this is what I gotta ask you. At what point is Fox News, which has been showing cracks more so this week than others, how soon before Fox News regains its sanity and says, you know what, we're just going to go back to supporting all the regular racist and not this specific racist?
The only way it's going to happen is when the president is indicted. When he's indicted, when he's impeached, when all this comes down the pike, and it's evidence that is shown by Mueller, and all this comes down, flushing down on the president, that's the only way Fox would try to back up. And knowing them, they might try to justify that. But I think at the end of the day, as people would say, I don't know where that phrase they come from, but at the end of the proverbial day, when you look at these bullet points, these evidence, these times and timelines where the president has shown more of an alliance with a dictator in Vladimir Putin than his own country, then yes, it's something that doesn't smell right. Something that's not right about that. So again, when everything comes down the pike, you will see Fox News do a 180 they'll do a Michael Jackson moonwalk and realize, you know what, even though we gave all this coverage prior, we can't support you now.
That's one of the things that kind of gets me about this story, because this might be a bridge too far. Donald Trump has taken an incredible amount of pains to cover up his involvement and conversations with Vladimir Putin, going as far as tearing up interpreters' notes, swearing them to secrecy, and making sure that any sort of body that was in the room with him and Putin is on an NDA. Now, Chris, I gotta kind of ask you, does the president's propensity here for privacy kind of go towards paranoia for prosecution?
That and protection. He's trying to make sure that he protects his boss, Vladimir Putin. Again, you just said, like, for example, there's no translators present when they're there, talking together, whereas, the president and Vladimir Putin. So when you do these little side tricks, and once again, like you said before, Shaggy, taking away interpreters' notes and things of that nature, you have to raise an eyebrow. And not like The Rock, from back in the day, you do raise the eyebrow, the people's eyebrow, because something is not right here. So when he's called upon it, oh, no, I never worked for Russia. It never happened. Nothing to see here. Go back and eating your hamburger. Well, yeah, go eat your meat between two buns.
Yeah, your hamburgers. Because
Right.
when it comes to the truth, Donald Trump has trouble. And I'm going
Yes, he does.
to bring this up at like very, very in ways that don't sound like Scooby-Doo when he says ghost, but I am going to say that when it comes to all of the meetings and everything that the president has denied on his Twitter and everything that Robert Mueller is looking into, Chris, could we be looking at evidence of collusion?
Yes, absolutely. Everything, all the above. And the time is nigh. And I believe the president knows that. So, he's running scared. He's trying to, of course, like I said before about the first rule of magic, you have to create a plausible diversion. Mm-hmm. And that's what he tries to do, with the hamburgers and all type of stuff and everything else. He's trying to create a plausible diversion because he knows that his time is coming to an end.
Yes, and everybody knows that it's Covfefe, not Covfefa. Hermione would be so proud. The thing is, when we're talking about spells, Donald Trump does indeed seem to be spellbound by Putin. And this is a kind of a scary precedence for an American president to be so enamored with the leader of a country like Russia, isn't it?
Well, look at his body language, for example. So let's go back in the timeline before he went to Helsinki. So, he has the summit meeting with the other world leaders, from Germany, Theresa May, and people like that. And, they got pictures of him folding his arms in defiance when they're trying to plead to him on certain situations and positions where it could benefit various countries. And then he goes to Britain and he does not know the protocol of walking with the Queen Mother and things like that. And then he gets to Helsinki. His body language is very subservient. It's not as strong as it usually is. He's almost kowtowing to Putin. So if you're an interpreter of body language alone, that will also be a dead giveaway.
Yeah, because when it comes to the alpha male that Donald Trump perceives himself to be, I'm a child of the 90s, so every time that Donald Trump actually looks like Vladimir Putin, it's kind of like Dawson was looking at Joey, and then Joey was looking at Pacey, because there is all this kind of love-lorn look in his eyes when Putin approaches crowd, and we saw that at the G20. And this isn't typically a reaction you would have for a guy that illegally annexed part of the Ukraine, has been known to kill his enemies, both journalistic and political, and has been known to kind of meander and try to manipulate foreign elections so that Russia has a more worldly, better political environment. So the president's cozying up to this guy kind of should scare okay, I can't say that on an FCC-mandated station, even if the FCC has turned off their customer complaint line. Yes, that's something that happened this week. The president does seem to be in deep doo-doo, or at least deep love doo-doo, when it comes to Putin. this isn't going to end well for us, will it?
No, it's not. It's not going to end well for everybody involved. That does mean us. Case in point, look how he embraced dictators. Not only Putin, but Kim Jong-un from North Korea. Pretty much saying, he's a nice guy. He's going to be all right. Again, another savage who kills family members, who uses fear and death to further his agenda. So he always has these glowing reports about these dictators because I think he sees himself as one. Birds of a feather. So, it's like who you roll with. I want to roll with Putin. I want to roll with Kim Jong-un because, hey, I'm one of you guys.
Oh, yeah, I want to be one of you guys. And here's the thing. Vladimir Putin depends on his state media to maintain his power. And as such, because we've got to take a break here, we have had some very interesting state media players when it comes to the United States. Now, we've already mentioned one of those in the guise of Fox News, but Chris, coming up in just a second, we're going to get to talk about one of our absolutely favorite mouthpieces of Donald Trump and the latest shenanigans of what's going to happen behind his trying to bring back media empire. I have a good idea that you actually know who that is, but you're not going to believe who he got mixed up with now. That's all coming up here on the show that's trying to review all the news that was before the planet goes to hell in a handbasket. At least our country. We'll be back with more. It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show.
I don't remember how it started. Our back and forth. Victory. Fumble. Repeat. It always came back.
Okay, here we go, throw it! Yeah.
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Nice.
This is the Shaggy Jenkins Show on the Pacifica Radio Network.
It's the Shaggy Jenkins Show on the Pacifica Radio Network. Welcome back, no matter where you're listening to us in the world. God, we love you so much and hope that you're doing well. Hey, if you want to check in with us and see how we're doing, there's a couple of ways to do it. On social media, just look for @ShaggyLive. If you are anywhere near a web browser, you can look into us at shaggyjenkins.com. And while you're there, I don't want to be that cuddly, lovey guy too much, but let's just go ahead and say that if you've ever wanted to check in and just be like, Shaggy, this is how my day is going, drop me an email through the website, shaggyjenkins.com, okay? This guy is joining me from a very cold place. I actually worry more about hypothermia with this correspondent than I do anywhere else. Joining me from the very windy city of Chicago, please welcome back Chris Bass.
No, Shaggy, don't worry about me. I'm good, man. It may be cold outside, but we got nice, warm talk going on right now, so let's make it rock and roll like we always do.
Okay, I got to heat this up with this story because I didn't know that white privilege was a club that we could just allow anyone in, because if it was, Shaggy would have diversified and gentrified white privilege a long time ago. But on this one little panel on CNN, somebody got it wrong. Okay, I'm talking about Areva Martin accusing the host David Webb of having tons, as we say in Hawaiian Pidgin, joke amounts of white privilege. What's the problem with that statement, Chris?
David Webb is black.
Okay, wait, let's back up here. David Webb, who, according to Areva Martin, has all kinds of white privilege and white privilege mentality, is in fact not white?
No, he is not white. He is black. He is an Afro-American, sir.
Okay.
African-American, yeah.
Now, this is the thing that I got to bring up because this aired on Sirius XM.
Yeah.
What was Areva trying to accomplish with this whole calling for white privilege?
Well, if I didn't know any better, when she mentioned the whole thing about white privilege and David Webb being African-American, it kind of sort of like came off to me that David Webb was Uncle Tom. That's how it came off to me, encoded message, because it's not too many. Well, there's a few of us out there that are conservative, that are in the media, that cater to the right. In this situation with David Webb, he also does some work for Fox News. So if you didn't know any better, you're just listening, to say, his voice or something like that, depending on how you are about interpretation and inflections and tones, you probably would say, okay, well, he's David Webb and whatever. But because of the fact that he's black and you throw in the white privilege thing, yeah, that could have been a dig. I think it was probably a dig about being Uncle Tom.
Because, see, this is the thing that concerns me about that statement. One, yeah, I know, look, we live in the era where every cracker out there is trying to cash in their white privilege cards, and seriously, knock it off, crackers. Y'all need to chill. But on the other side of that, there is the whole, and I'm not going to use the word reverse racism. I'm going to use inter-community racism, because this is what happens. If you are somebody of African descent and you behave certain traits, okay, be it literacy, employment, literally the bar is set very low on this. But one of the biggest insults that people in the black community throw around is Oreos, talking about, oh, you only have the black skin, but you white within. And that is a derogatory insult for somebody in a black community in the United States. So when somebody goes and accuses like a David Webb of white privilege, I kind of want to say that it feeds into that whole schoolyard. Let's call them Oreos if you're in Hawaii. Let's call them coconuts, brown on the outside, white on the... And at the end of the day, it kind of takes away from what should be very meaningful conversations about society. Chris, are we ever going to get to the part where a black man can simply just be a black man?
Well, but see, that's a loaded question. And the reason why it's loaded, Shaggy, is because being in this country and being the person of color and the history that's especially between whites and blacks and between whites and other different people from themselves has always been not a really good harmonious relationship. We know it's talking about slavery, the whole thing. So, but then people teach that mentality generational wise. Once again, we all know you're not born with the mentality to hate. Hate is a learned behavior. And so if someone says to you, well, look, all black people are the N-word, they lie, they cheat, they steal and everything else, and you buy into that, then you see somebody on the street and different from you and they're a person of color, you'll buy into it depending on who you are. So to be black defines who the person is, who you are, comfortable literally in your own skin. If you can love yourself, you can love others. But how people view you back, that love may not be there at all.
Yeah, because, honestly, I view myself as a 7-foot lesbian black woman. That is something that I live with.
Hey, that's great.
Yeah, this isn't... and if you do watch the video show, yeah, I'm not playing for the WNBA because I'm not 7 feet tall, and let's just face it, I'm wrongly equipped for that whole lesbian and black parts that I mentioned. But this is the thing. As long as we're talking about people that are just way off base, about understanding race, about understanding life or reality, I want to bring us our favorite subject. Alex Jones is back in the news this week, Chris, and how are things going for Mr. Jones lately?
Well, not too good. It started off pretty well. The Roku channel store was about to offer his program because, as you know, he's been banned from other social media sites. And unfortunately, Jones and InfoWars, it didn't last too long because Roku got rid of him immediately, and which is a good thing. And let me tell you why. In our profession in talk radio, you have people, for example, who want to outshock the other radio host, for example. Mm-hmm. So when Rush Limbaugh came on the scene all those years ago, people say, okay, how can we be better than Rush? What can I do to outrush Rush Limbaugh? That's usually what happens when somebody is a game changer. Now, I don't care for Rush Limbaugh's policies, but as a broadcaster, he did change the game for conservative talk radio. I got to give him that. But then we have people who came after him down the road, like an Alex Jones, who is like, okay, how can I out Rush Limbaugh? How can I out Sean Hannity? How can I outdo all these other people? Okay, I'll just be completely nutso to the right of Genghis Khan, which is what he's been doing for all these years. So now Roku has done, I think, a magnanimous job of removing him from the channel because people like him do not understand the constant fear-mongering that he has. You can only have one Rush Limbaugh, only have one Sean Hannity, only have one Mark Levine. So when you try to outdo those guys, there's probably no more room for you.
Yeah, and this is the thing that people don't understand, because for the most part, when we mention the company Roku, they're thinking about the OTT, or over-the-top, set-top media devices, the little sticks, the little boxes. You plug them into your television, and all of a sudden you have apps, and apps can watch programs. However, Roku here lately has been going in a different direction, whereas they've tried to develop their own streaming offering. Now, we talked about this about 2 weeks ago when they came out with the Roku channel. And the Roku channel was going to take their box, their hardware, and actually add a streaming service, whereas they were going to do just like everybody else and invest in original programming. So Roku already had a lot of industry attention on them for this channel that they were about to open up, and every eye was on it. So I got to ask you, knowing how vocal Alex Jones has been in the media, knowing that just a week and a half ago, the parents of the victims of the Sandy Hook shooting won a lawsuit because he was telling everybody that was a false flag operation. With all of this stuff happening around Alex Jones, how did Roku even come to the table of saying, maybe we should offer InfoWars?
Well, I think like anything else, when you're trying to get content, you have to, of course, dissect the content and see if there's an audience for it naturally. And I think what comes to mind for me, would Roku have kept Alex Jones had not been for Netflix raising their prices? If Netflix wouldn't have raised their prices, I think that Roku would have kept Alex Jones. And the reason why I say this is because it's still competition. So if you have people who might, and quote unquote, might defect from Netflix, let them be a source out there to be more attractive for competition purposes. So, you don't want Alex Jones on there, even though he's been, galvanizing on social media for years, but he's been dormant because of what happened from his banning. You don't want to risk that chance.
No, but here's the thing. Alex Jones was one of the most vocal supporters of Donald Trump. And we all know that Donald Trump loves handing out favors. I mean, come on. This week, we actually have a story going, did T-Mobile bribe the president? And there's a lot of evidence talking about, yeah, they probably did. But Donald Trump has, for free, famously thrown his support behind Alex Jones and his InfoWars. I've noticed, and I'm going to ask you this, step after step after step. First it started with Twitter, then it was YouTube, then it was Facebook, and all the other properties, Vimeo, and everything that came after expunging Alex Jones. The president has been remarkably quiet, at least with Alex Jones' case. Why do you think that is?
Because you don't need Alex Jones anymore. You used him for your purpose. You don't need him. Again, you got the trifecta in Sean Hannity and Coulter and Rush Limbaugh. You don't need Alex Jones. You don't need him. So he served his purpose. You kick him out with the baby in the bathwater.
Okay, but the thing is like Alex Jones really thinks that he is going to, with this latest ban, once again, he really thinks that he is going to finally uncover the vast liberal conspiracy against him and InfoWars. Knowing what we know about how he actively in a child custody battle last year admitted that all of that stuff is fake and hootabaloo, how likely are we to have a legitimate return of Alex Jones and InfoWars to the power that it enjoyed just one summer ago?
I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, that's just me personally. I don't think it's going to happen because, again, with the outlet that he has, going back to Trump, of Fox News and the people I just mentioned before, it doesn't really fit. I mean, he used to fit, but he doesn't need it anymore. So it's being used up. Remember how, for example, when Michael Cohen had come forward and, with the whole allegations of Trump paying off the two ladies and everything else, and how he distanced himself from Michael Cohen and Paul Manafort and everybody else. Same with Alex Jones. You used them, they used, and it's time to move on.
Yeah, because, I mean, this week we had a heavily redacted kind of filing from Mueller's team about Manafort's lies, and boy, they added up to a lot. Manafort, of course, in the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon's separation here, was one of those people that was on Alex Jones and InfoWars when Donald Trump was still a candidate. Of course, Donald Trump himself was on there, and then we can't forget all the lovely people like Michael Flynn's son, and yeah, you get the picture, because this is the thing that really, really kind of brings it all home to me. Chris, InfoWars was trying desperately to build up a media empire off the Trump presidency. Conspiracy theory, with Donald Trump and his want of a media empire, do you think that really he was only going to use them for so long before we saw him drive them into the ground so he could start his own property?
Yeah, I'll go along with that. And again, it's like the old Bill Withers song, the old school song, use me until you use me up. And, he was used up. Case in point, and in the so-called popularity of Alex Jones,
okay,
you had the White House press secretary, Sarah Sanders, use an InfoWars video. Remember Jim Acosta with the intern and grabbing the microphone? She used that as a point of reference. And she got scolded on social media and Twitter for her using that guy's InfoWars page as a point of reference. So again, you can align yourself with crazy because, as Forrest Gump once said, stupid is as stupid does.
Yeah, and crazy is as crazy does, because Alex Jones has been pushing very crazy conspiratorial theories over the way. So, and this is the other thing. Roku had an opportunity with this Roku channel to kind of go after some of the lower local news and really go where television and cable isn't going with localization. So this is kind of a side story. Headlines are out now when talking about Facebook. Facebook has decided that since they are so much in the gutter, Chris, they are going to invest $500 million over the course of this year for local news to use their streaming services. So this is the thing. Alex Jones not only got kicked out of the marketplace, but every source that he could possibly go back to has now started to invest in and bring in their own properties. How long before Alex Jones is a footnote of history we never hear from anymore?
I hope very, very soon. I really do. And not only that, most people, they don't want to admit it, they show in their actions. And Alex Jones wanted so much to be legitimate. He probably, in his dreams as a broadcaster, if you want to call him that, wanted to be a part of, say, Fox News Channel, probably a part of something, ABC News, other news outlets in some capacity, if he was to join, because that gives him legitimacy. And he never had it. So in the world of the internet, he was able to form his own island, his own thing. But I think, again, if someone came along to Alex Jones and said, look, we'll give you a segment on a network, oh, yeah, he'll take it. He would have took it immediately. Most people would.
The thing is maybe Alex Jones should get into like a real conspiracy of our day, something that has taken and gripped the internet by storm all weekend long. I'm referring, of course, to the picture of a simple egg that beat out Kylie Jenner's record on Instagram. An egg in American society, and actually world society, got 35 million likes on the platform. And I gotta ask you, if you're a personality like me who has a podcast, and you're somebody like Alex Jones who had a multi-million-dollar podcast, and you see something where an egg, nothing famous, an egg just got the world record for the most liked picture on Instagram, how much hope is there for us as a society at that point?
None. None. That's it. The egg is cracked, the yolk is out. There's nothing more we can do. It is, how you want it scrambled, fried. It's a 2-minute. Come on now. That's beyond comprehension. But in social media, it's the impossible becomes possible. You and I both know that.
Oh yeah, and I thought that this story would go completely over easy, but no, not at all.
Very, very good. Very good.
Yeah, everything's looking sunny side up for the egg that is now the largest liked post this week. And the reason I bring up the egg post, because we're talking about Alex Jones, is an inanimate object has become more relevant on online sources to Americans than any other human. Kylie Jenner announced the birth of her first child, and a picture of an egg beat that. Baby egg. Alex Jones, not a chance. So that kind of brings us to a last story that I want to talk about, because this has to do with people in the media saying the thing that we're not supposed to say out loud if we're horrible people. I'm referring to, of course, Mr. Representative Stephen King. Not Stephen King, the guy that represents Cujo and Misery. And no. Steve King. He's from Iowa, I believe. Yep, Iowa. And he was on record of asking people, hey, what's the big old deal with people being white supremacists being wrong? Before I even bring it up, Chris, just thoughts.
I always like the fact that when you catch a person off guard, because they can't be on, quote unquote, 24 hours a day. There has to be some lull time where they actually show who they really are. And, and King is one of them. A lot of these people are closet racists. They can't come out and say, well, I hate all N-words. Those days, are back in the day. You can't really come out and say, you can if you want to, would jeopardize your job and your constituency. But no, you say behind closed doors. But when you're out in front of the camera, you smile for the camera and you do your thing, and make sure you get your good side. But now, he made it very, very clear about between white supremacy and white nationalism and everything else. All it is a lot of these people being outed for who they are, and their guard is down. And so when they had these interviews, they just come out and say how they really feel. I think it's great.
For me, this is the thing that bothers me, because every job that I work at and I apply at, they always ask me, is there any problems that you have? And I was like, I hate white people. And they laugh. But this is kind of the thing. I've realized that I can get away with being as open against white people because everybody just kind of thinks that it's a joke. But when it comes to Steve King being against any minority, not only is he not joking, he is on record several dozen times with public policy and support for public policy along racist bends. And now, when he says, hey, what's wrong with white nationalism? Just a real quick question. Why has nobody fired him from his job?
Because he was around other white supremacists. That's why. They were the same mindset. They protect each other. Any group of people that are like-minded, especially in a position of power, I got your back, you got mine. So he didn't go anywhere because they apparently agreed with his statements.
The thing is I haven't seen open, blatant racism like this since Senator Strom Thurmond and Jesse Helms. So for me, this is kind of like a throwback representative. Yes. However, every time that he's kind of been in the news, you notice this great mist of silence that follows all the other GOP members when they're asked to kind of answer to it. But with this latest case, now even his own party isn't supporting him. Is that a genuine disgust at the fact that he's a racist, or is this just a party that took an ass whipping in the midterms thinking that maybe they can win some brownie points?
I would go with the latter, only because of the fact that it's good for business. And the business, of course, is the GOP and saving what's left of their face that is on the ground. So it's bad for business to embrace King and what he says. And once again, in theory, behind closed doors, I believe they agree with him. I believe a lot of them agree with him. But it's bad for business to support him publicly. So they have to keep a distance in order to save what's left of their faces.
The thing is, though, is he's the one that's been out there. He's the one that's actually said, quote unquote, the bad thing, or as I like to call it with crackers in office, he said the thing out loud that they really think, but they're not supposed to say out loud, but everybody knows they're like that. The thing that really bothers me about this story, though, is yes, we have had some representatives, we have had some senators coming out and denouncing these statements. The one person that really has the power to denounce these statements on a national conscious scale is Donald Trump. And Chris, he said nothing. Why?
Again, he is in alignment with the school of thought of what King has said. That's why. Because when you say nothing, that speaks volumes. You would think that the president would come forward and put him in his place, check him, denounce him, nothing like that. No. When he's quiet, that shows you right there that as far as I'm concerned, and most people I talk to about it, he's all for it. And so when you co-sign in silence, you're co-signing because you agree in theory of what that person said and does.
The thing that really gets me about this, though, is with Donald Trump and his system of doing things, especially with doing things through representatives, is this him letting Steve King do the how racist can we be litmus test?
Yeah, I would say so. It's like, again, even though Donald Trump has crossed the line and said certain things and has crossed that, or they call broken the third or fourth dimensional wall, again, you still have representatives of him that continue on the path, that continue to break the wall just like he did. And so when you have people like King, yeah, it's not a problem because they're of the same mindset. You want to push that agenda forward, and you do it in various ways you can, not just from you as the president, but from other people who are like-minded as you are.
Now, this is the thing that really gets me, because with Steve King, it is very... his racism is like a huge Confederate flag that he has tattooed on his forehead. And, actually, he has tattooed on both of his buttocks because he's throwing this white racism around and telling everybody to kiss it. The thing about him is the scariest thing of all, is he's the one that's noticeable. And everybody that's noticeable is usually hiding 6 or 7 unnoticeables. So at the end of the day, when it comes to Steve King, and we've got 30 seconds here to answer this question.
Sure.
In fact, will any action ever happen against him when people actually kind of subscribe to what he's saying?
I don't think any action will come towards his way. I'll be surprised, if he gets more backlash of it. But again, when you have people in the numbers you just mentioned that support him, it's strength in numbers always.
Always. Well, there's strength in our numbers because, Chris, we've made it through another show. Until next time, everybody, we got to go. Love you, mean it. Gate and bye. We'll catch you next week.